controversial decision over the weekend, a homecoming ruined. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the STAYWEIGHEDIN Podcast. I'm joined by my man Ray. How you doing?
Do you know what? I'm gonna go sleep again in a bit, but I'm not as tired as I usually am. So we move. How about yourself?
I'm the same, because
Yeah.
I woke up, I felt a little bit more refreshed. So I'm not that tired, but we did have a big night of boxing yesterday, and we're just gonna go straight into it and break it down. And I think we'll start off with Vegas and what some people are saying is a robbery, but we'll go on to explain straight away why us two are not classing it as that, and that is Devin Haney beating Lomachenko and a unanimous decision. And we touched on this being when people have alluded to being a robbery. I want to go to you on why you think that this particular result of Haney winning wasn't classed as a robbery.
Is like, I think people do this thing where they see swing bouts and then they think robbery. Swing bouts being, fight rounds that were, sorry, did I said swing bouts? Swing rounds, whereas rounds where it could go either way. It could go to person A or person B. So I think this match had a lot of those swing rounds where it's just like, depending how you see at the time, you might give it to person A, person B. I feel like a lot of people, what they weren't doing is giving Haney enough credit for his body shots, because sometimes people are just doing agenda. They're just like Loma more, so they're just doing this thing of like, they're just not going to acknowledge the body shot. So they're going to be like, oh yeah, well, it didn't stop Loma. I said, which is a fair point, but they still landed. You can't be like, because a shot didn't stop someone, that you're not going to count it. So there's a lot of swing rounds, sorry, I keep on saying bouts. And for a lot of people, it's like there's one or two difference in terms of rounds for each fighter. Some people have it to Haney, some people have it to Loma. So I think that's why that's the biggest what if of this fight. But I can't see it as a robbery, because it's the same way when we was, going through Sterling versus Cejudo, where it's just like, it was a tight fight. And depending on how you score certain rounds, it can be tight and it could go either way. So I can't call it robbery. I can call it a close decision. I can definitely see it going other way, but not robbery. Robbery is when it's straight up, they didn't win this fight. And if some people want to feel like that, then fair enough, but I can't see it as robbery.
I guess for me, I'm with you like completely in the way that you say what you're articulating, because I believe the same thing. I think the first person I always say opened my eyes to that particular way of thinking was Max Kellerman. I can't remember the fight, but he basically said, if it's a close round, you can give it to person A, someone give it to person B, and if you can't definitively say why, there shouldn't really be classed as robbery. The only thing I'd probably look at is I think one of the scorecards was a bit stretched to also give round 10 that looked like an obvious
I think
round
that was
too
the
low.
116, 120 one.
Yeah.
Was it 116, 120?
116,
Wherever the scorecard was.
Yeah.
Yeah, 160, 112, sorry. That's the only one where it was just like, whoa, how did you score it that far apart? Like, it was close. A lot of boxing experts I've seen have said, you can argue a draw, or at most is 115, 113 to either guy.
It's interesting because going into that final round, two of the scorecards had Haney up, I believe. But then if Loma had basically taken the 12th round, that apparently he alluded to the fact that he may have even taken it off, we'd be looking at a majority draw right now. So if Loma was alluding to that particularly, is it a bit of an error on his behalf to allow himself to feel like he was up in a particular fight and take it easy in the final round?
Yes, but sometimes it's like when you're in the real life moment, you might actually think, because remember, like I said, there's a lot of swing rounds. So he's probably thinking to himself in those swing rounds, like, yeah, I've got it. Like, this is me. I've done it. So he's probably just there thinking, not cruise control, but he's probably thinking I've banked a lot of the rounds. So I can't blame him for that, because we're speaking in hindsight. But in the moment, and especially the fact that a lot of people thought that he won, so he might be thinking to himself, oh, I've got this. And yeah, kudos to both of them. I think I was speaking to one of my guys earlier on, where they made observation was like Bill Haney being in Devin's corner. Now, Bill Haney, obviously, you got to give him credit to where he's led his son, where he's brought him to, how he's guided his career. But is he an elite trainer? No, he probably knows himself that he's not. But what surprises me more is that they haven't brought in anyone to replace Ben Davison. Remember, Ben Davison was taken over for Haney for a bit. Obviously, the whole MTK stuff, they're being investigated, so they can't really coach. But my only thing is, why have they still not brought in a main trainer yet? Because I feel like Bill Haney's important. I feel like he's still be needed for his input. I just don't see him as a head coach type of thing. But it's just surprising as to like why they haven't brought in a main guy, because a lot of people think that Devin had a lack of good adjustments, whereas Loma did.
I was going to say at 35, with Loma being the age that he is, and then we touched on the fact that he's basically a very short 135-pound fighter. Are you impressed that he was able to make this fight as competitive as he was? I know we've touched on Haney, which we'll talk about a bit more, the fact that he's fighting at a weight class that probably drains him a bit too much to a certain point. Are you impressed that 35 Loma was able to make this a bit more difficult than it potentially should have been, especially with both fighters in this stage of their careers?
I think Loma showed what experience can do for you, because, like people are saying, he's a smaller guy, but he went in there and you just have to be efficient. At that age, always classify it as Bernard Hopkins being the personification of this, where you go in there and you have to be smart about your output. You have to be smart about how you move, because you're not as young as you used to be. Your reflexes aren't what they used to be. So you got to go in there, fight efficient, fight smart. And I feel like that's what Loma done, where, yeah, it looked like he was putting a pressure on Devin Haney, but it was in a way of, it wasn't as physical as it was more mental and movement. So, kudos to Lomachenko. And obviously, I'm sure the past like year or two has been a whirlwind for him, and what a fight that he put up.
So looking ahead then, like we touched on Haney and post fight, um, he kind of flip-flopped a bit, alluded to the fact that 135 drains his body. Then you had Shakur that came in post-fight, and he kind of touched on the fact that, look, they've been calling me out, I'm here. We need to make this particular fight. And then obviously you got Loma that would probably try to push for a rematch. Is it probably in the entire division's interest, because we've seen how these things play out in other particular divisions where Haney moves up, the belts get scattered. It allows for the fighters that we've talked about before to be able to fight for belts and then become unified champions against fighting each other? Or do you think it's best for the fighters try to push to fight Haney and try to claim all four?
Go to 140. Devin Haney, go to 140. For me, there is not enough money, unless the only person he should stay for 135 is Tank, not Shakur. As bad as that sounds, because you can't keep weight draining yourself and taking that risk. The risk is too much. Do not stay there for Shakur. As much as that it sounds bad, it sounds like a duck. It might possibly be a duck. It might be, because I like Haney. However, there is not enough money. I feel like Shakur still needs to get built up. As bad as that sounds, I know normally we're just like, if they're ready, they're ready. But I feel like that could be a bigger fight at a later point, at maybe 140 at 147. But for now, I do not think that Haney should take that fight against Shakur. That is the real boogeyman in that division. Let's be real. And in all honesty, go to 140, make history there, get more belts there, become unified champ at 140, maybe become undisputed at 140. But unless you're going to face Tank for that big boy piece, there's no need for you to stay at 135. Like, it's bad because it does look like a duck. It does.
It does, but to what you said before, both guys are basically the same age, about a year in difference, same height. You saw like Shakur at 130 when he couldn't defend his belt, he basically turned around and said, "This is killing me. Like, I can't do 130. I'm moving to 135." You can see it again that in a couple of years, maybe he moves to 140, same thing. They both fill out at 140, and the fight will be there, I personally, because both are on a similar trajectory in terms of, like, they're both, like I said, similar height, to a point, similar build. So it's a fight you rather have when both guys are feeling more natural than one guy killing himself versus one that feels natural at the weight.
Big bullseye. And I feel like, especially because Tank, I don't see going up to 140. Not to fight the elite anyway. 130, because of his build, it's just like 135 is more like optimum for him. Even though it hurts him to get there, at least height wise, he won't be at such a size disadvantage. Whereas the big money fight 135 is Tank versus Shakur. Let's be real. And I feel like for me, and I said this in the last episode, what I prefer is Devin Haney goes up, relinquishes all these belts, unless he's going to get the Tank fight, relinquishes all these belts, and then all the other top lightweights, Loma can go grab a belt, Shakur can grab a belt, Frank Martin can go grab a belt. Who else is at 135? Kambosos is there, so that'll be interesting. There's another person at 135 that's eluding me, and it's absolutely frustrating me now that I can't remember who it is. But anywho, there's elite fighters there that I feel like they leave the belts for them to go collect. And I mentioned Tank, so, and I think it'll be good. I think it'll be finally good to see Tank get a legitimate belt as well, and then face Shakur, because then it's just like, all right, you can make a bigger fight. You can go make Shakur versus Loma for a unification match, and I feel like that could be big money. Then you can Frank Martin, Tank on their side on Showtime and PBC. They could make a big fight once they both get belts, and then the winner out of, let's say, those two brackets can come face each other, and then bam, that's the new next 2 years. And then, you know, if Tank is really the face of boxing, then he can beat Shakur and then make a big, you know, become the guy. Or Shakur wins, and then Shakur now becomes the guy, and then Shakur can go up to 140 or 147, and then it can be big from there. But I feel like for me, I'd rather Haney drop the belts, go up to 140, and then all the other top lightweights go grab a belt and then make them big fights happen.
And just quickly before we move on to the other fight that happened earlier on in the day, Lomachenko, what we've seen from him, because he looked a lot more impressive. I think some people thought he would be. How many more fights has he got at the top level? Considering, I would say, as much as great as he is, there's still some of the younger guys at 135 that are better than him right now.
Like I said, I think there's still room for Loma to get a belt again. It's not going to be undisputed, which I'm sure he's going to be upset with. But the fact that they got Shakur and Loma at top rank at 135, get them. Obviously, the big thing is, does Haney relinquish his belt? If Haney relinquishes
I think
his
he
belt,
does. I based off what I saw with the post-fight interview,
yeah,
it kind of was like, look, I'm gonna do it, but I'm not gonna do it right now. There might be that thing where, we try to push a potential fight, it took too long, etc.
yeah.
Contract things, and then like, I need to make my move and move to 140, because I'd be surprised if he stuck it out there.
I think he's probably just waiting for the. I think he either waits out to see how much he can get for Shakur fight, and at the same time he waits out to see. From my understanding, unless they got a contract extension that clause that kicked in, Haney's contract and time is up with Top Rank. So Haney might be a free agent and say, "Listen,
Matchroom?
no, Matchroom. If he stays at, that's what I'm saying. Here's the thing: if you go to 135, if you stay at 135, sorry, Tank fight is there. If you can maybe go to PBC and say, listen, I'll do a 2-fight deal. Let's get this Tank fight. And if Tank wants to be undisputed, here it is. Brilliant. Or you go to 140, relinquish the belts, and then you go back to Matchroom, because Matchroom signed Ruguru Prograis. They've got a lot of tough 140 pounders there that's already been calling out Devin Haney, and the fact that there's one more 140 pounder champion that Matchroom are looking to sign as well. So I feel like the future is looking good for him at 140, and I know 140 obviously they got Josh Taylor at top rank, and there's one other belt holder at 140. It escapes my mind, but yeah. The possibilities are endless for Devin Haney, but for me, if he's smart, go to what, unless Tank goes, he wants to do the fight at 135 for generational money, go to 140, man.
And moving on, we are now going to touch on the fact that, like I mentioned, was earlier on in the day in Dublin, the homecoming for Katie Taylor, where she did lose to Chantelle Cameron, and Chantelle went in as a champion, went in as the underdog again. For me personally, surprised that she went in as the underdog. Oh, as
It
far
made
out.
commercial wise, it made sense.
Yeah, commercial wise, it made sense. But for me, it was a dominant display from the first round. She was the aggressor. She looked like you could tell that the height, the size, the power, it looked like it was affecting Katie. Uh, what was your take on the fight itself, and did it kind of play out to what you thought it could do?
I think we kind of predicted it, where we said in the last episode in the preview for this match that if Cameron knows how to use her size, it's going to be her fight. And I think that's just what happened. I think maybe first round it was Katie, and then from second, Cameron just kind of realized that I know how to win this. And she just went out there and she put on a dominant performance. Like, there's very few people that I see contesting it. And I think a lot of people are just like, nah, Chantelle went in there, done what she needed to do. And she faced Katie at the right time because here's the thing with Katie, she's got a lot of wear and tear. I think we mentioned it, like she's
Yeah,
near the end of her career. If she gets through this fight, go face Serrano, go into the distance. Now, apparently, she's gonna want to do the rematch, which I'm very worried because Chantelle Cameron is saying I want to come to 135. But if Chantelle Cameron can cut to 135 in a healthy manner and then balloon up to what she was again, it's not going to look good for Katie, and she's going to lose her belt. So I don't know whether it's better to face Serrano now or to face that Chantelle Cameron. But she's a champion. She's got that fighting pedigree. She got that dog in her, and she's going to want that. But I don't know,
when it
advice wise, whether it's the best thing to do or not.
if Cameron can cut to 135 and then, like I said, balloon up, would it surely be advisable then to put in some form of rehydration clause and stuff like that? Because it's I understand that it limits the challenger to a point because obviously they're not fighting in a natural way, but you're putting yourself significantly as the champion at a big disadvantage if you allow her to be able to get, because naturally it looked like it was so overpowering the way the fight went that it actually kind of surprised me how easy Cameron made that fight.
I honestly feel like Katie wouldn't do that because she knows it
But
won't
I
look
understand, yeah, it won't look good, but
it won't look good unless the only way I see it is if Eddie Hearn takes the bullet and says I put in a rehydration clause, but then it's gonna look funny in the light, man. It will look hella funny in the light if they do that. So I don't think they will. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't think they will. And then if that's the case, then it's more even. But if there is no rehydration clause, the rematch goes the same way. And for me, I'm just like, you're finally back in Ireland. Do the Serrano fight in a stadium because people still want to see you. Do it. And if you even put it as the big farewell or hint at it being the big farewell, man, that's going to be quite the night for her.
I was gonna say, so the actual introduction, the entrances, sorry, again, like we talk on Eddie Hearn, but you had the initial
Make
female
the
rendition of
stars be stars.
I'm coming home. They let her have the moment. She's on stage. It wasn't rushed. Like no part of that compared to what I saw with Loma and Haney, where you have the side barriers are just walking through. You have commentary speaking over it.
Did we not say this about Top Rank
Exactly.
in the preview videos?
Honestly,
We
it was
said this.
so
They do
bad
not know how to make. This is another reason why I'm like, Haney, go leave there because they are not
because
going to make you the
because
star that.
Katie Taylor, she legit got him. Or when I say like there was silence to it, and then when she came out, you had the music playing, and she soaked it all in. That felt like a homecoming, and it felt like, okay, she's old, but this is a star moment for her, regardless of the result. And again, like you have to give props for Eddie on the production and just understanding that we don't need to rush these particular moments. But yeah, I was gonna say like, what would you say on that? Like, I know we've talked about it, but he's just the
Listen,
best
that
at
is
it.
how you make stars. That is, and shout out my guy Malachi Boxing was having this discussion regarding other promotions that some of them I'm not. There's one in particular. I'm not going to say the name. There's one in particular where we're just like, this promotion does not know how to make stars because you've got a businessman running the company, but that businessman is not a boxing man. And in the sport of boxing, I get it. You do need the businessman to help because you need money pumped in. but at the same time, they come to a certain point where it's like, it can't be just business. You got to love this. And I think for Eddie Hearn, he's in that position where not only is he a businessman, but he loves this. So he understands in order to make a big boxing star, you got to do certain things. I think that's what Eddie, like we said in the last episode, Eddie puts money behind, I will make someone look like a star if they are a star. And he's done it again. He just knows how to, like, production-wise, you just can't complain. And I feel like there are many roadblocks in America that's trying to stop Eddie Hearn from expanding Matchroom there. But the guy just keeps on showing, like, if a lot of fighters see what Eddie Hearn's doing for them, they're just going to be like, do you know what? Let me sign with Eddie because this guy is doing his best to try and make me look like a star. And he's done it again. And I feel like they can do a big stadium fight for the Serrano fight to make it look even bigger.
I was going to say that I know we've got Katie being the star and stuff, but for Chantelle Cameron herself, we talked about how women's boxing is on the rise, and there's a few stars you can put there. Serrano, I'd say, Carissa Shields, Katie Taylor, Savannah Marshall's the top four you could put out there because probably the most outspoken and also had the highest bills in terms of the fight cards. For Chantelle Cameron, is this like a star moment for her where people can now look at like, okay, she's on the card, whether it's main eventing, whether it's being on the undercard, but it's like we might want to tune in to see what she does, or
yes and no. It depends on how she capitalizes off of this. But if you go out there and she still wants to do the whole quiet, oh, I'm just here to focus on boxing, then no, this ain't gonna be the coming out moment. Don't get me wrong, I get it. Find the balance because some people don't like media and such, but I feel like she needs to find the balance of, you don't have to be a complete media darling, but play the game a bit. Do a bit of media. Do a bit of, like, get your name out there. Obviously, she needs to put the pressure on Eddie to be like, listen, I won this big fight. Get me those nice TV spots where I can show my personality more. I can put my face out there to let people know what I've done. I think that's what she needs to jump over that hurdle.
I was just going to say on that bit, is it a struggle because Matchroom's on DAZN? So to put your face on TV is quite difficult because you're behind a paywall that's subscription based.
Yes and no, because the way that the sport is moving
online,
is like online, but then Katie Taylor's on DAZN. Katie Taylor had all of Ireland; she had a whole nation backing her. So it's just a familiarity thing. Like, if you can get someone's name big enough, then it should be fine. And I think that's what it is. You just got to get someone's profile big enough. That's why Katie Taylor. You don't. Well, there might be because we ain't on Irish socials, but from what I've seen as a casual to stick to it, no Irish person's been going, oh, why is it on DAZN? Why is it not on, insert the Irish version of their mainstay TV station? They're like, no, we're here to, to fly the flag for Katie.
It's funny you said that before we wrap up and stuff. My brother was saying the same thing. He goes, look, in the UK and in Ireland, is the normal person just watching? I go, look, in the UK, maybe not as much because women's boxing on the up. But in Ireland, people are tuning in a lot more than we assume. And that's, again, it's a credit to Eddie, but also to Katie Taylor for making herself out there, but Eddie helping out.
Absolutely.
But with that, wrap up today's episode of the STAYWEIGHEDIN Podcast. Any last words, Ray?
Listen, man, you saw big Undisputed fights. Keep the attention on those big fights. Keep entertaining it. Keep supporting Stay Weighed In. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Stay Weighed In.
That's it. And road to 2K as well. Just gonna throw that out.
I said that. 2K.
Road to 2K. As always, guys, love and peace and stay weighed in.